Hi everyone, welcome to the Q&A for Deceased Ones, this wonderful short film. It had its world premiere last year at the Tribeca Film Festival, and we're so proud to be presenting the Miami premiere, which you've just enjoyed. This film was directed and produced by Kate Hopkins, who's with us, and written, produced, and starring Emily Kron, who's also with us. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Hello, hello.
Well, first thing I want to say is congratulations to both of you on making a film that is manages to be both moving and hilarious. It's quite a feat, and we were taken by this film from day one. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that.
In fact, it actually kind of segues into my first question because I imagine you guys felt you had to really walk a tight line. A story that has so many funny moments, but also has an undercurrent that's like deeply tragic. And I think a lot of filmmakers, would have probably been tripped up by that, and the story or the tone might have kind of gotten away from them. How did you manage that? Is that something you guys talked about? Is that something you were cautious of, and how did you approach that?
Yeah, great question. Kate, do you want to
take a
stab?
I can take a stab. It's a huge thing that we talked about before, and honestly constantly talk about since, because it's the piece exists as a proof of concept for a show that we're developing, and that line between light and dark, death and play is so important, and we are, it's just really delicate. And I think the main thing that we try to remember is that there is like humor and joy in all the parts of life, and that this piece is taking a stab at grief and healing in a way that kind of is ideally destigmatizes death. And then in just terms of the performances, like we tried to be really grounded in the reality of what was happening, and let that like be a spout sort of like sounding board for the comedy, because the more you believe the game, I think the funnier it can be. I'm sure you have something to add, Em.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like the dance between comedy and tragedy is one that we not only are, discussing in this project, but like really in all kind of artistic endeavors that we create. So that is definitely like a tonal choice that sort of penetrates a lot of the work we do. Because that just kind of makes us like tick and ask questions. But I think with this particular concept, right, it's like it really is inherently about role play, which is play and fantasy and imagination as a way of healing grief. So the concept is inherently like conjoining those two. But yeah, it was definitely tricky and like such a good challenge. And I think that the people, the two actors playing the parents did a really phenomenal job also at grounding, the reality of their story, their journey, what they're going through at that time, what they've been through. And so I think that they did a phenomenal job.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. Kate, one of the many things that impressed me about this film, I felt a very kind of strong directorial hand, and how kind of from scene to scene, depending on what's going on emotionally, you're making very kind of specific visual design, editing choices. Can you kind of walk us through some of the? I think of like the early kind of jump cuts when they're getting ready, and then in contrast to the kind of flatter images of the parents, that kind of thing.
I mean, we shot this like 2 years ago now, right? Yeah. We shot it in February 2019. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea what I was thinking. And I really have to just like hand it to all the other collaborators. Emily's writing, the performance, our DP, Ludvika, was an enormous amount of creativity and wealth of knowledge and vision on this piece. And then finally the editor, James Manzello, like elevated it to another level that we all sort of dreamed of, but like weren't fully like in vision state until we started working with him. So that's a little bit of like passing the buck off me. But I think the main thing that I can say that I felt like my hand in it was actually the blocking. I think one of my favorite things about directing and working with actors on stage and on film is how people move in the space and how bodies relate to each other. And that's something that I spent a lot of time with in those 4-person scenes and at the table, all the movement in there. I just think that is in this piece too, there's is kind of like a performance sort of theater element to it that felt really fun to nod to in some of the wide shots. And so that's kind of where my directorial head was at. But really, everybody else made it amazing, honestly.
Nice. Well, turning gears to the script for a moment. So there's this kind of concept in storytelling, right? That action precedes explanation. That like in a good film or a good play, we'll be sucked in by an interesting action and not so concerned with exposition. We'll kind of figure things out as they go. To an extent that I really admire, you guys rode that concept far, whether consciously or not. I mean, we go very deep into this film without quite knowing what's going on and what the relationships are. But we're riveted anyway, and it really works. And when the reveal comes, it hits you like a ton of bricks. Was that a conscious choice to kind of ride it that far? Or did it just kind of organically develop that way? What were you guys thinking?
Yeah, I think it was a conscious choice. We wanted to, I think we're really interested in, delaying the moment at which everyone is on board with understanding that this is a construct and a game. Because I think, in a meta kind of way of thinking about it, we want the people that are in the game to not always remember that they're in the game either, and to sort of, and for those lines to be questionable. And sure, maybe the rules are specific, but it still creates a space for, who is who, when are the lines of what is reality and what's not. Is reality the game? Is reality like this person being your child? That is the reality for this person at this time, the client at hand. So I think that we were just interested in really pushing the moment of that reveal, and then the second reveal being the one in which the actor playing what's the character's name? Chris. Nigel playing Chris.
Nigel playing Chris.
Nigel playing Chris, right? When he learns about this really important aspect of the real boy's life, that reveal and the choice of whether or not to bring that into the realm of reality is also something that we wanted to be kind of like a 180. So that was sort of a long-winded way of saying, yes, it was conscious. And I think the whole point of this concept is to include like as many kind of twists and turns and discoveries as possible, because I think that's what it is like you don't really know what to expect. There might be rules written out, but it's still improvised, right? So yeah.
I would like to add, like, as we continue to develop it and learn how to talk about the show and the concept, I think we can actually learn a lot from this proof of concept as like the slow kind of roll out of a thing that is really confusing and really strange. I think actually the credit, like, to Emily's structure and style in the writing, like, I don't think people would understand if it isn't built the way it's built. I think it's like a really good strength to the landing of all the ideas. It's the way they like roll out.
Yeah.
Really hard to explain.
Totally. Yeah. No, exactly. And stepping back for a moment, like, what was the inspiration for this? Had you like researched grieving? Is there any kind of therapy that's even remotely close to this kind of thing, or is it totally invented? And what kind of main themes and emotions do you want people to take from this? I mean, I'm sure to do with grieving and things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, I'll sort of touch on the first part of the question first. Yeah. There is not anything, really like this, because this is really questionable as far as morality goes. there are similar things that we can chat about that we've come across, but the idea is based on something that originated as like a personal anecdote for me, which was what's a shorter way of saying this story? My dad is the son of Holocaust survivors, and he's a guy who dealt with the tragedy and like the sort of tragic cards that he was dealt, or his parents were dealt, by way of just like comedy and play. And he would sort of do really, really dark things, like dress up as Hitler to make them laugh and like march around, and they would encourage it and love it, and just like really trippy, weird intersection of comedy and tragedy. And so in part that sort of conjoined with a really strange story about a mystic healer telling me that I was that my soul was sort of like the embodiment of his dead sister. Stay with me. I know it's a wild one. It sort of got, those two sort of things got me into thinking about how we play roles for one another without knowing, how we exist in each other's lives and assume these personas and identities to help one another heal in ways we don't understand. So for my dad, I'm sort of here in his life to maybe be emblematic of someone else in his life to help him heal. And just this sort of layers upon layers of the different roles we play for one another. And that was kind of the spark of like, of this concept. How can people kind of interact with those in some way that have passed? And what does that do? Does that heal them? Does it help at all? So yeah, it comes from a personal place, and I think can feel personal to anyone, because we're all, like Kate mentioned before, interested, I think, whether we know it or not, in destigmatizing a conversation around death and bringing it more to a playing space, for lack of a better word, that allows for just like more curiosity. And I think in a Western culture, we don't have as much of that right now, or ever. So yeah, that's my spiel on that. Part two, you want to take a stab at?
Part two,
we want people to take away
themes. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all hit in your answer, though. It's just like, yeah, about performance and identity and healing, how to use what's in the present to heal the past. I think one of the most sort of successful parts of that arc in the short is that Max incorporates his own trauma or grief or pain around his coming out. It's very subtle, but I think there's like, that is a healing moment for him, as like, even though he's the, giving the service of this role play, he also has a healing moment. And by being vulnerable as himself, he invites the family to accept something about their son, or have a transformative moment. So yeah, I think identity and healing in the present with the past is a big theme for the piece.
That's brilliant, guys. Thank you. I have time for just one more question. So I'd like to ask about you guys and your collaboration, and how long you two have been working together, what other projects you're working on, and to expand on, you mentioned you want to make a series out of this. So I'd love to hear something about that.
Sure. We have been working together for 4 or 5 years. I feel like that's what I said, like 4 or 5, like a year ago, but like this.
Yeah, I think it's like 5 or 6, but yeah.
Right. It's been a minute, and it's been the best. This was our second short that we made, Deceased Ones, and then we shot something this summer called The Dog Friend that is going to be in hopefully festivals soon. And the show. So we've just been in development for a series that would be called Deceased Ones, about Max and Fiona, the leads from the pilot, but sort of expanding who they are and their own personal backstories and their own individual relationships with grief. And it just sort of expands the world of this company that offers this service, and more clients, more gigs, more complicated dynamics. And Yeah, and always towing that line between comedy and tragedy. Yeah, we're creative partners.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've done a lot of different, we wear a lot of different hats together. We've co-directed, Kate's directed me. We've written stuff together. I've written stuff that she's directed. We really are apt at playing different roles. Not to like bring it back to the theme, but yeah. So and the show is really about as Kate already mentioned, like how to create a space of, I think, connection. It's really about human connection, especially in a world. It's not about technology at all. So they're kind of like nods toward like a Black Mirror style in the weirdness of what they do and the surrealness of what they do, but it's all about human to human contact. So anyway, that's just to add that. Yeah.
And the friendship of the two leads.
Yeah, which is great. The chemistry between you guys is fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for bringing this film to Miami. We cannot wait to share it with our audience. Well, when they're seeing this, they'll have already seen it. But
I hope you liked it.
yeah, and thank you for taking the time to talk about the film. This was great, insightful, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
No,
I really
thank
appreciate
you.
it.